Okay, so today's piece is by American composer Michael Winter. It's called To Kill a Monarch, and it's not for completely open instrumentation, it's more variable instrumentation. I'll get to that in a second here. One interesting thing about this score is that I believe the music is generated in Super Collider. If you're not familiar with Super Collider, it's an audio programming language with like a client server kind of model. So it's really good for like live audio programming. And then also that's sort of transcribed by this notation software LilyPond. So yeah, at the end of the score here we get the super collider code and the LilyPond template so that effectively you could generate the score yourself. It's about like 13 pages of code for the super collider stuff. Here's the main code. There's the README, and then here's the thing that's generating the musical data. And I'm assuming there's a LilyPond program after this. This section is called the sonifier. It's also super collider code. This is the transcriber. So I guess this is how you get from super collider to LilyPond. I've never actually worked with LilyPond, so I don't know how this works. Here's the GUI, the graphic user interface. So I think if you started up this thing, I'm not going to do a comprehensive review of the piece. Like I'm not going to actually start up this code or anything, but if there's a graphic user interface, I'm assuming there's some parameters that you can change to like get a slightly different output so that the piece is like kind of more algorithmic and variable. Here's the LilyPond stuff. So LilyPond, I guess, uses .ly files. So yeah, there you go. That'll make the score for you. And it's like less than 200 lines of code for the LilyPond stuff. And yeah, what's a good place to go next? Maybe just the score to show you what it looks like. So this is what LilyPond will put out for you if you put in seed 19800,725. And then there's these, I guess like there's these three things and one other thing, which is marked with an asterisk. So the lowest, I'm assuming this means like, hey, these three instruments, the lowest note of the third one is a C, kind of like a cello. The lowest note of the second one is a C, but an octave higher, kind of like a viola. And then the lowest note of this one is also a C, right? Um, and then there's not really a similar range given for the bottom staff. If we go to the performance notes, I was reading this yesterday. So apparently there's multiple different configurations you can do with this piece, but the three main voices have to be like a similar instrument. So you could do like a solo version where there's only one instrument and they're playing this bottom line, and then these three are just like electronic sounds. Or you could do a trio version where these three uh, are playing what's written, and then this is electronic sounds, just the bottom staff. Or you could do a quartet version where all four of them are instruments, right? So but I'm pretty sure, like, depending on the way you set it up, it could be any instruments. But yeah, just so you're aware, there's no version of this where there's just two people playing, or there's no version of this where there's five people playing. It's either a solo, trio, or quartet. Having all electronics and having it as a fixed media piece is also not acceptable. So that's why I say it's not open instrumentation, it's variable. There's like certain rules you have to follow when you set it up. This is what the GUI looks like. It looks like you are given a nice big like queue where you're supposed to be in the score. And you can start it from any point because it's designed to play the like audio for you. And then there's a mixer section where you can kind of mix each of the three instruments. Then there's two sections called accompaniment 1, accompaniment 2, and then there's also a click track for you to follow, which you can change the volume of that, and there's master volume. So, and then in terms of like what you can do with it, I guess it has a seed-based system, so you can set the seed to you can set it to a random seed and then generate the score and then just play along with it. And you can also change the tempo if you need to. So yeah, it seems like there's sort of an infinite number of different scores that can result from this piece. You can also bounce the audio, right? So I guess yeah, there's a transcribe function to Lily Pond, then there's a bounce function if you want to have like a fixed media part rather than something that Super Collider is producing live. Okay, so that's what I've been able to deduce just from the score. Let's get into the actual performance notes here. The original version of the piece was quarter tone bass flute and three string players, so it was a quartet. And then there were two additional electronic accompaniment parts. I guess I neglected that, so there is electronic stuff that is not transcribed. Um, and then this next paragraph is the one I was talking about, where it explains that there can be a trio version or a solo version. I guess this was written for Rebecca Lane, who I'm assuming was the flautist that he worked with in Berlin. And then he has three other friends who contributed to the first performance. They were all cellists, Deborah Walker, Judith Hanman, and Lucy Railton. So it was like cello trio plus bass flute. So I guess like the original intention is like, yeah, we have this quartet, but I could also just put on this piece with the three cellos, or I could just put on this piece with the bass flute. But I think it's more variable than that. I think you could just do it with other instruments. So the first third of the piece is a sort of extended prelude. The rest of the piece is a series of modulations slash interpolations where each modulation goes from one mode, a gamut of 7 pitches built upon a given root, to another mode built on a different root. The interpolation is governed by an algorithm that models a phenomenon where the rich get richer, such that the more pitches that have been selected from one set of a potential candidate modes, the more likely that candidate will eventually become the destination mode. Once a mode wins, its wealth is effectively stripped and it can no longer persist. So he's using uh, probabilistic rules to as metaphors for the accruing of wealth, and for like as a metaphor for like political things. At the beginning of section 1 and each subsection from 2 onward, a key is provided that indicates the current route for each mode articulated by each of the candidate parts. So maybe that's what we were seeing here. Like maybe these are the fundamentals at 1.1. They're all C's, and then here are the 7 pitches, which I guess have ratios with the fundamental, right? 9 to 8, 6 to 5, so the pure minor third, the pure major second, 13 to 8, 7 to 4, 3 to 2, 7 to 4. I guess he always mentions what the mode is that way. But if we go to 2.1, I guess we should see another new fundamental. We get a double bar line at 1.43, and then we get 2.1, where the fundamentals are The fundamental of the second instrument stays the same, but the third instrument goes up to the low D, so that fundamental is 9/8, or ratio 9/8. And then the first instrument, the fundamental goes up a fifth to the fundamental G, which is 3/2 relation, right? So that's the new paradigm here. The relationship between instrument 3 and 1 is also 3/2, but the relationship of 2 to 1 is 4/3. The relationship of 3 to 2 is 9/8. You get the idea. And then it changes every time after that point, right? So this next one, uh, then the fundamentals are, I'm just going to list them, D, G, and C in that order. Then they're G, C, and D in that order. Then they're G, C, and G. Then C, G, and F sharp, F sharp, G sharp, F sharp. You get the idea, right? And then the sections are smaller, right? So there's like 43 subsections to the first area. There's only 6 subsections to the second area. Each section should generally have a dynamic crescendo that peaks in the ultimate subsection. So that's what that double bar line is emphasizing. So like in the first section, you should be slowly getting louder from 1.0 all the way to 1.43, where that you're at your loudest, and then we go back to 2, where we're quiet again. And the electronic accompaniment is designed in such a way that it will overpower the other instruments at the end of each major section, is what I'm gathering here. Uh, Within each subsection, each part can have a small flourish of activities, which can be articulated through dynamics. The piece may be played at a slower tempo. The default is 60 beats per half note. Do not go slower than 50 beats per half note, though. So very narrow tempo range, I guess. And then he talks about the Super Collider program, and that's it. His output ranges from uh, acoustic instruments to installations to kinetic sculptures. Each piece typically explores one simple process. He's also interested in epistemology, mathematics, information theory, and the history of science. He contemplates that possibly everything is computable, even our experiences, which constitutes sort of a digital philosophy. His work aims to subvert discriminatory conventions and hierarchies by exploring alternative forms of presentation and interaction, often with minimal resources and low information. The second paragraph is more about his collaborations, his professional work. Currently, he's University Professor of Sound and Intermedia at the Gustav Mahler Private Universität for Music in Klagenfurt, Austria, primarily residing in Berlin. And if we look at his CV here, he got his bachelor's in music technology at the University of Oregon, his master's at the California Institute of the Arts, and his PhD at the University of California, Santa Barbara in 2010. And then places he's taught are pretty extensive. He's taught at Cal Arts, University of Virginia, Charlottesville, University of California, Santa Barbara, of course. These were all during his student days. Then he taught at the Art Institute of California, the University of Southern California, the Universidad Federal do Estado de Rio de Janeiro, just as a visiting professor, and now he teaches at the Gustav Mahler Private University. I'm also seeing here that he's worked with Edition Wandelweiser and another timbre, um, and he's been featured at the Huddersfield Music Festival in the UK. So there's like a connection there, um, in terms of aesthetic. I'm getting the sense that he's quite leftist. Maybe his writings will illuminate on that. One big essay of his that I think I used for an essay was he writes about Arbor Vitae for string quartet, a piece by James Tenney, like a late piece by James Tenney, which was I think realized through computer code. Um, there's a performance by the Bozzini Quartet, I think, which was sort of this was sort of the essay that led me to discover Michael Winter's music, actually. Um, I didn't know anything about the guy before reading this essay of his. Notes on a new economics for a new music. I think this is probably his manifesto in the experimental music yearbook. Manifesto to the extent possible, proliferate art freely, allow us to abandon our propriety to address problems without giving full solutions, to be marginal half revolutionaries, to fight for a more humane world by disregarding the traditional former protocols of institutionally sanctioned protests, to rant and rave in hopes that perhaps truly fresh ideas may come to the surface. Yeah, so he sort of underlines how capitalism affects and the current monetary system affects the arts, specifically music. Ultimately, art is art, and its value is not affected by medium tangibility or profiteers that establish markets via its commodification. What is more disconcerting is the infection of the artist with this commodification, the internalization of art as commodity. There's nothing more disturbing than seeing an artist who works solely for money. If you cannot do it for free, for the sheer love of new experiences, please quit now. I don't think I have enough time on this channel to go through all of this, but just to give you a sense of the guy and his political views, because I was kind of gathering that just skimming through his bio just now. And I think I have read some of this article before, which is why it was kind of in the back of my mind. Um, but definitely living in Texas for 4 years under the Trump and then Biden administrations, I really liked what Michael Winter had to say and was really drawn to his music for this reason as well. But yeah, I haven't listened to it in a long time, any of his stuff really. This is To Kill a Monarch. Link to the recording is in the video description, and yeah, I look forward to listening through this one. Okay, so I hope you listened along today. This was, I didn't realize it, but this is like a sort of electronic mock-up of the piece. As far as I know, it is yet to be performed. So that was something I was thinking about as I was listening to it. I kind of gave up following along with the score around 9.3, 9.2 maybe. I was able to pretty clearly hear the top instrument because it was panned far right, and the asterisk instrument because it was panned far left. But a lot of these sine tone type sounds in these just intervals, they really blend together, so it can be quite hard to pick out every individual voice. Um, the electronic accompaniment was actually pretty extensive, so there's like all kinds of other voices outside of these four, most of them in the upper register. But yeah, it was kind of fascinating, especially the moment where it reached section two. I thought that was a really interesting moment. because I was really for the intro, I was really focusing in on this bottom voice and trying to imagine like a bass flute doing it. Um, and it kind of just has this like sequence of notes that span C3 to B flat 3, right? So you have like this interval that keeps being reiterated, and it all kind of sounds C minor-ish in the first section. But then when we get to the second section, if I can find it here, it starts, all of the voices start wandering in different directions, right? So, um, and quickly you get out of this range in that voice in particular, gets up into onto this A. So yeah, that was a moment where things kind of started derailing or like degrading, exploding, like something is infecting the process, and I think that that really sets the tone for what Michael's trying to say with this metaphor of like monarchs gaining wealth and power and then being overthrown and then another one gains wealth. It's like this thing suddenly starts happening that interrupts the relative uniformity of like what came before it, you know. I think probably the most realistic way to perform it would be with just a bass flute and electronics. Um, but even the bass flute part, there's some really long blows here with with like just a little bit of room to breathe, right? At the end of every line. So I mean, you're out of breath for 30 minutes. I don't know how physically possible it is as an endurance piece for a bass flute. I mean, that's tough.